please mute yourself. Let me do a quick 2-minute intro, and then save your questions until the end. And for those of you who are first time with us, we are Serverless Toronto community, started 7.5 years ago as a function as a service developers, but during COVID, we migrated to online format. And then over the time, we realized we could help businesses by working smarter, not just by sprinting faster. And we started defining serverless as a pragmatic mindset, not just the tech stack. So it's a way to focus on business value. And this broad definition of serverless allows us to explore many IT topics. And you will see on a YouTube playlist that lots of content is still relevant. And so we are now following this path of building and then securing and validating your solution. So after, I hope that you will come back to us after today's presentation. The next one in December will be from Senior Developer Advocate of Sync, Vandana. She will be talking about securing MCPs and LLMs in general. And then in January, we're going to kind of step back and think like, will your idea fly? With AI doing more and more work, like how is becoming less relevant? Then is talking about whys. I think also it's important to address the question what to build. So these are the two meetups we are planning in the future. And last but not the least, these meetups have a mining publication as a knowledge sponsor. They give raffles at the end of every event. So please do the survey at bit.ly/SLS2TO. Tell us how to improve, and then we'll draw one winner at the end. And for everybody else, there is this 45% code. Enjoy the savings. So before I pass the mic to Dan, so we all faced with these legacy apps that nobody wants to touch, and then we'll show you practical AI-assisted migration patterns using Gemini CLI, not just the tool features. So Dan, thank you for coming back to us. This is your third presentation. You never stop to surprise us with over-delivering the content. I'm excited to see what I'm going to learn next in this audience. So thank you. Please take it away.
Thank you, Daniel. Let me see if where everything is in here, and then we can do this. All right. So I'm going to share my screen. Easier to move through a number of things. So I hope everybody sees the screen. Yeah. Okay. So let's think about what we generally do. And then in the intro started mentioning that, or it was him. We work on different things, new projects, greenfield, probably brownfield application development. Maybe 80% of our work is updating different code, adding new business functionality. But there's also a third aspect, which we are facing a lot more now, which is code migrations. And we might migrate from older technology, let's say a Java client server from like the early 2000s to C++ or so on. But we also want to see, as we go into building these new things, how can we build things more reliably, faster? How can we gain understanding from code bases at a faster pace? And what is it that we can shift left? So what should we use today? We're going to take as an example a migration of a project which I presented in the summer. I was here talking about agentic AI, and we had this world capitals application built in with Java 21, supported by Spring AI, LangChain 4j, the models, the Gemini models, which were available at that time. So that was in June. What happened in the last 6 months? Many things changed. So sometimes legacy is not really what we think like maybe 20 years ago. Legacy might be also things which we built 6 months ago because new requirements come along. So if we take this application, we have this running. I'm running it in Cloud Run. Let's refresh this. These were the models which we had at that time. These were like the latest preview models. Let's think about the fact that these preview models are now not even available anymore because newer models come along. And where is it that we want to go? We want to go to a new application. And why do we want to do that? Many things have changed in the meantime. Models have changed, that's one thing. But also developers want new features. And one of the things which, and I'm going to speak about SDKs which Google provides. We always had support for credentials-based authentication. And it is a secure way, but it takes 3 steps to get started versus an API key. So developers have asked us in various forums, that was the top ask, support API keys as well. So we want to add API key support as well as credentials when you run it in a cloud environment, let's say in a serverless environment. So when this new SDK came along in June, the old SDK, the Vertex SDK, has been put on the sunset path, and a new Google GenAI SDK has been released. So we want to migrate to that. It's not just for API keys, but all the new features which were added in models from like 2 and 2.5 up, and whenever the new 3 will be available, will be supported through this SDK. And there are many features which have been asked, they're supported there, and they're in this SDK. So we want to do this migration. So we want to have a fast type of migration. How does it look in the end? What's the end goal? We have this application rewritten with Gemini 2.5 models, the current models available now, and with the latest Spring AI, which has been released 2 days ago. So why do we pick something that fresh? Because it makes us think about many aspects. So in the end, we want this application to be able, this is a world capitals application. If you have watched the previous session in June, you would be familiar with it. If not, I would encourage you to explore those aspects. So this would work. It would have all the features. If you're a racing fan, it's like, tell me who won Formula 1 race last weekend in Brazil. So this is where we want to have this application migrated. All right, so this information fresh, everything available. Now, how do we get there? When should we start moving by hand? Well, no, we want to use tools. And we want to use tools. All of you are familiar, have heard about different AI coding assistants, different AI tools. They come in different forms. Some are plugins, some are CLIs, and they all are friendly helpers to us. But to have a friendly helper, let's see how we can get a friendly helper to help us throughout the stack. So I'm going to use today Gemini CLI, which Google built. It is a project which started in June, at the end of June, and it has now 80,000 stars, and it gets developed at a super fast pace. It has 179 releases since June. So we want to use this. We can run this. We can run this in our own environment, and we can run this anywhere we have a terminal. All we do is, let's start this. I can run this in this environment. All I have to do is install it. Simple install, brew npm, npm being the preferred one. So if we think about what our expectations are from these tools, the first one is I want a friendly helper. That friendly helper should be reacting to the questions I'm asking, give me advice, help me understand things, help me formulate plans, help me build different things. But as any friendly helper, if we work together for some time, we have an understanding of how we work with each other. But if we don't, we need to share knowledge. So in order to gain that kind of experience and share knowledge with our friends or with our colleagues, we have to engage with the tool. So the way we start brand new with any of the AI assisted tools, and there are many on the market, we need to engage with it. Today, it's a Friday. If it's my first experience with it, I can maybe do a few things. I see a prompt, I'm going to ask some questions. It's the equivalent of a race car. If I have like a super sports car in front of my driveway, maybe I can move it today only to the corner. Maybe if I take some lessons or take it to a track, practice with it more in a week, in a month, in 2 months, I become better. So the benefits which you get out of this tool are only coming from how you want to and your willingness to engage with these tools. When you work with things, and the different concepts we're going to touch upon today are coming as just as guidelines or as best practices, but you always have to think that you have to do things yourself. We pitch a straw man, which we want to knock down, but we want to experiment, and there's work which we need to do. We also have to think that when we work, we don't work in isolation. So maybe we experiment on the weekend with something which is really interesting to us. But the moment we start sharing things, whether it's open source, then my teammate is the next person who's going to leverage my open source contribution. And if I'm working in a team, it's my team, or how do we share information across teams? So our focus is today on how we migrate an application, but how we do that in an enterprise setting. What is there to be learned for us? So when we use a tool like Gemini CLI, and you can actually use it even by sending simple commands. What is the weather in Toronto? So I have this friendly helper here all the time. So it's going to, I can run this as well. It will go find out a weather service and give me the information. But how do I work with it? I need to work with it with some tools and some commands. And our effort would be to understand what tools are available to us. In order for us to get to that final code base, there are a number of steps which we want to explore. Can we do it? By hand? Sure. If we have an experience with it, sure. If we participate in that open source, and in full disclosure, I contributed several modules in Spring AI, including the Google GenAI module, which we added, as well as I'm contributing to the SDK itself. But I want to see how I can share this kind of information also with the people I'm working with. So there are a number of tools which I'm being asked all the time. I'll give you some feedback also from work I do with customers over the last couple of years. So there are a number of tools which are available to us. We don't want to reinvent wheels. Things like an agent to investigate the code base, or finding files, or doing search, or writing to-dos, or writing files. So all these commands are available to us. So we should make good use of them. Now we want to run many operations when we do investigations of a code base in parallel. So there are sub-agents which are already available in addition to this main agent. What is in fact a coding assisted tool like Gemini CLI? If we think about it, it is a loop in which we interact, and it works with a number of models. So we can have sub-agents which could do a number of operations in parallel. Very handy for us when we start with a project, because we might be new to a code base, we might not be aware of all the changes which have been made. So we have these tools. Now, this is great, but if we just start sending different information, that might not be sufficient for us as developers. So what does the model know from what we know? It doesn't know about Spring AI, it doesn't know about SDKs, but we want to start by giving it a persona and giving it some information. As tooling, for the tools which we have available, we can wire in a number of MCP tools. Some are for Cloud Run, some are for the UI, which is built in Vaadin, some a very handy one is for Context 7, which would give us documentation all the time. So this documentation should participate in our work. But even this documentation might not be up to date. So if this might not be up to date, and if we look at Context 7, Spring AI was released, but the documentation has not yet been updated. So is there a way around it? So what we can do is and that's a technique which many people use, we can simply clone the repositories if it's open source, or if it is your private source, and add them to our project and have the very latest one, let's say a Meetup or a commit, or we have here, we can add additional directories which could be outside of our project in which we work. By this, we can reference like private code which nobody sees, which could be used for sources of information. The same, we can connect to other services like SharePoint or different other Google Docs or GitHub. So we have this information, and we have now the latest Spring AI documentation. I just cloned it here just so that I have the very latest one. Now, a system message is used by any tool to drive the general persona of a code-assisted tool, to give it general guidance and give it a core mandate, how it could work, the primary workflow, software engineering tasks, and so on. Gemini CLI, being open source, allows you to also change the system prompt. So the one best practice I would recommend is for you to change the system prompt and adapt it to the work you do, or to the work your team or your line of business does. And you can change that very simple by exporting the previous one and then changing the new one. So that would be one thing. We want to expose the Gemini CLI to the right information in here, because I'm building a Java application. I want to give some specific Java instructions, like prefer long-term release versions for the UI. I might work with Vaadin, and I want to focus. But there are also additional information. So outside of controlling the behavior of the CLI, we also have to we can add additional information. So a tool like Gemini CLI, and in a similar way, others like Cloud Code follow a similar pattern, we can add information to guide it with a file called GeminiMD. You can change the name, it's just a name by default, in which we could set maybe project level defaults. We can have one at the root folder, but we can have some on the entire path up to our project and its subfolders. It might tell us, oh, I want to use this style guide. So if I want to use this, this style guide, I want to specify it here. Or I might want to add, refer some other critical instructions. By this, I can help guide it. But then we get into the prompt. Well, if we get into prompts. Sure. Are there ways in which we can focus it even more? So in order to do that, we can add extensions. Extensions which would be the idea of providing a set amount of additional commands in which we would give it different personas. Now you're an analyzer, now you're a planner, now you're a deployer, now you're implementing. And we can build these components. All of these repositories are shared on Meetup, and they will be shared also with the recording. So we want to give it specific information to focus it. Let's say this is, for example, now you're in plan mode. If you're in plan mode, this is what I'm expecting. This is what I'm expecting. You to do. Now we have tools. We have various ways in which we can instruct these files. All of these commands you can build. You can build, and the ones I'm sharing are just, consider them just your start. Add additional ones. You might have different ones in the SDLC. You might use these directly. How can you install them? Like, very simple. Let's say this one is Gemini Plan, and all you have to do is you install it, and then you can leverage them within your application. Now, we need to make also a distinction between short-term memory and long-term memory. Everything we type in the prompt here is part of this session. If I shut down this instance of Gemini CLI, that information is lost. But I might work, things might crash. I might work over let's say it's the weekend. I want to shut this down. I want to continue on Monday. So we need to create the difference between the session, which is what we work on right now, and what accumulates, the prompts and the answers which we get back, and long-term memory. Long-term memory, we want to focus and keep the LLM focused on the goals at hand. And in order to do that, we want to save that information. How can we save it? We can save it in the Gemini MD files if we like, for example, at the end, or we can save that in another file, or we can save that with MCP in a database. But we want to control that information. What we type in this session will be lost, or if I'm clearing the session, it is done. But I have the ability, and I would recommend saving the chat as to where we were. I was working, I tried it earlier in the day, ran a code review, and all the questions at that point I can save. I can continue and come back. If it crashes, it's fine, but if I have some specific points, I can have them all available to me. So let's think when we start with the code base, and let's start building now our changes. What is the first thing we want to do on a code base before we touch it? We think that one of the things which we're being asked in this fast-paced development is to shift a number of things left. What can we shift left? One could be a code review. The other one could be a security review. So for example, I have this custom command called analyze the code base in the source code. You would be asking why. Well, I'm a good corporate citizen. I want to make to understand what it is and correct things which are available. I can allow one change, or I can allow it to go over and over again. Please be aware, if you let it run in automatic mode, ensure that you leave checkpointing on and ensure that you save your work, and don't really avoid letting it remove code from your code base. There are enough stories happening. So if we look at how we want to start our work, let's see, I want to review the code. So I take this custom command code review code, and I want to say review this code base and give me the critical, high, or medium findings. In the meantime, the security review runs. I can run them. I can run multiple instances, not a problem. So if I'm asking this command to review the code, I gave to this custom command a reviewer persona. So I wanted to analyze the code. I want to see what patterns it has. Imagine that I don't know this code base, and this might be new. One of you shares it with me and says, well, just do this migration today before the weekend. Like, I might not be able to do it, but let's use my friendly helper and see what it would provide to me. And with the custom commands which we built, with these custom commands, we can understand and focus it specifically on this particular aspect. So it reviewed the code base, and it will write it under reviews and code review. So I'm going to say, okay, build this, write this review for me, and then we see where we are. Security one still goes one after the other. Now, I have this code review. Let's see what I get. So it tells me it looked this code, and it mentioned that, oh, it has a potential SQL injection vulnerability in this class. This is a bit too much. So it tells me where the issues are. Here's the issue. It gives me a description, and it will give me a recommendation, which I can implement right away. Then it gives me some which are nicely printed. And so I get now information about code review items for high values, medium ones. I purposely leave a number of things for code review in this application. So if I see these, should I start doing migration, or should I first make code changes and fix the code which I have available? So if I want to change this, all I have to say is fix the SQL injection, which you in this class by implementing queries, ensure that input validation is performed. And it wants to suggest to me also additional things which I might want to do. I might not want to do this, so I'm going to let this run. In the meantime, the security one is still working through the different classes which I have. It's very handy for us to address things up front rather than when we push them in a cloud environment and build images, and it takes us way too long. So it suggests now what changes it wants to make. We're going to see what changes it did. And now I can see that it addresses issues properly. What I didn't ask it to do is, well, see if this is compiling. So I want to compile the change. I got the change. I didn't touch this code. I worked off a code review, and I want to see all the changes which it did for me. So this is built. So it's great. So I'm starting on the right foot when I'm building now, when I'm starting my migration. Now, let's see if security is still working. We'll let it do its job. So now we said we have the Spring application. It is on an earlier version, which was available in the Spring. It uses MCP at version 0.10. The current one is 0.16. And it uses, if I'm looking here, it uses the Vertex modules. And I want to replace that. Now, this is built with multiple frameworks. It uses also LangChain for J. So because of that, I don't want to touch that. I'm not migrating that particular tool, that particular aspect. So I want to say, now I'm going to write this command. So the way we write these prompts, we have to be as specific as possible, as cater to the actual goal which we're setting to it. Because we're giving it a goal, which it will break down into individual tasks, and it will execute each one, gather all the results, and come back to us. So we have to be crisp and sharp on to what we want. So here, we want to create a new plan. What are we asking? Well, we're saying we want you to update to Spring AI. Migrate the code base from these libraries to the new libraries. Then we want to update the versions. Now, should we say update to the latest version? I think when we migrate, we want to be specific to the versions we want, and we want to confirm this in the plan which is built. Then read the latest code base for Spring AI, because we saw that Context 7, even with MCP, great tool, but it's not up to date because this was released 2 days ago. And please read this because it's in the docs folder. Now, we want to say do not use Spring Boot auto configuration for the new modules. Read the credentials from environment variables similar to the existing code. There is a change which will come along now with Spring 7, which just came out yesterday or 2 days ago, which would allow us to auto-configure multiple configurations. It was not available, so this app is built by just reading the environment variables, and we want to keep it that way. We don't want it to take liberties. Then we want to say list individual classes you want to update with all the changes in details. Why do we want that? Because our goal is to build the right plan. We understand as SMEs in what we do, we understand the domain. We understand what we're asking, but we want to know, and we want to focus on how to build a good plan. And we want to delegate the tedious work of maybe just writing the code. Sure, in the end, it's our responsibility to accept that code. But in the meantime, our focus wants to be, and that's going to be a big mindset shift in how we think, is focusing on getting a good plan, because it's easier to always focus on a particular plan which we can implement and always come back to. Then we want to specify, we want to say that yes, these libraries support API key and credentials, but please use the API key. It's the ask for people to use the API key. Should we use both for the purpose of this? Let's do something different, because it involves different credentials. It might involve now things which were not available in the previous library, and LLMs can easily be confused. We're going to see if it will execute our plan in one shot or if we have to intervene. And in the end, we say that updating LangChain is out of scope. So leave that code as is. So now we want to let it build our plan. In the meantime, this is still checking security class by class. We'll let it do its work. We're not going to run that each and every time, but we can shift several things left before we even start building our app. So now it builds our plan, tells us what it wants to do. I said, okay, look at the docs folder. I didn't say docs/Spring AI. Let it figure it out. It tells us what it reads, and now it will tell us what findings it has. It tells us what it needs to be updated. It identifies the classes which we might change. It might tell us that in some classes, well, we don't have to change some things. We don't have to change something. We should just address some others. So let's have this test written out, this plan written out, and then let's review it. This is going to be our main driver for what we want to do. So it built for us a plan based on the system message we had. That's what it knows. What is in the instruction in Gemini MD, it takes into consideration the Google coding style, which it would look into, and the custom commands which we built. So it is now in planning mode. So it will give us a checklist. That's what we ask for. It updates the dependencies. Sure, needs to be done. This has a base class. Have to move them to the new GenAI modules. Okay. Environment variables. Okay. Test in the end. And in the end, we want to review it. But now we want to go a little bit in depth and understand whether this actually addresses all the changes and what changes it intends to make. So it will change some dependencies. It tells us what consideration and challenges. Well, it has to get now the Google API key. All right, this is something new. When it implements it, it has to update a POM file, and it, as we asked, please list what versions you want. In the plan, it says, well, I'm going to update to these. Okay, I agree with this. Then we need to remove these imports. We need to add these imports. While looking at it, okay, this seems fine. Then there are some changes in not just class changes and packages. We had like with model, with temperature, that was the previous builder syntax. Now this is different in the new Spring AI 1.10. This supports also embeddings, not just chat, so it will update these as well. And then it will run tests. And what is it in the end? We want to see that everything passes. So now from our extensions, which one do we want? We could refine it if we don't like it. We could say, well, maybe just give some additional feedback. And I'm not thinking it's right now, it is in planning mode. But let's say I stop and I come back on Monday and I say, okay, now refine this existing plan. Or I can implement it. What we didn't do, because it might take a couple of minutes, we didn't want to spend time, is explain the project. For older code bases, we might want to have a very detailed explanation of the code base. So in our case, we want to say, okay, implement this plan. We don't have to specify each one because it ends in the content. In the meantime, security still goes. So we want to see what it will do. It will review the plan, and we want this to track the plan and update here this checklist. That's what we ask. So we're saying we want to take a risk because we're happy with the plan and let it try to one-shot things without us making changes. Be prepared for LLMs. The same plan implementation does not occur identically in 2 consecutive runs. So always be prepared to refine maybe the plan, update it, repurpose different operations which it does. Also, be prepared that when sometimes LLMs go due to their non-deterministic nature, they start exploring maybe how I'm building a test or how I'm building something else, and they can keep on making changes, and they enter a loop. So they enter a loop, and that loop is okay. So it starts updating it. I think we can see it better if we look at it this way. So All right. So now it wants to run a test. Let's have a look. What did it do up to now? Because I'm curious if it's going to require additional work. It updated the versions. I'm expecting, all right, the libraries. That seems fine. It updated, okay, just the abstract base. So it did not make any changes. Sometimes it wants to make all the changes. Sometimes it wants to run a compile early. So here, I don't want it to run a test. What I'm going to suggest is run mvn compile to ensure successful compilation and continue. Because I see that it didn't implement everything. So I might want to give it different. Yeah, I'm going to allow it to run mvn compile all the time and continue. It might fail. It might go. Yeah, well, this is building a question from Sarkis. Yes, of course. Well, if we did the explained code base, sure, that's for our understanding. This is independent. The way we build the custom commands, the custom command is not built on an explanation. It is built to, it has instruction for go and understand the code base. Have a look at the extension, which has every one of these commands. They're in the notes, and you're going to see that. Okay, so it will fail sometimes in the builds, and don't see that as a negative. Many times it explores a number of things, and then it tries to come back. Now, where I observe that it could it could go back and forth is to the fact that we are moving to a new library and we're asking for different where different depends on different security credentials of how we deal with it. While this is working, that Tim has a question. One thing is always ground the AI in reality is to add a custom command during the design. Is when it builds the plan. So if you have different choices, yes, in the Gemini MD file, I'm asking it. Where's the file? I'm asking it to use reference documentation. Always use the library and code in the docs subfolder for reference. This is mine. You can, of course, update it as you see that it's best for you. For reference, when I need code generation setup or configuration step or library documentation, if that is not available, I might decide not to just upload the repository. You should automatically use context 7 to go and get that documentation. If it is private repo, you can do that in a docs or a temp, but you can use that include directories and specify to somewhere else on your machine. There might be best practices you want to follow, which you have available. Now, Gemini CLI, as in preview, also a feature called code customization, when you can take your enterprise features. That is a distinct feature offered by the tool, which you can index. And by this, it makes it available in your regular prompt, but private to you. Nobody sees it, neither does Google, nobody else. It's just people who have access to that particular project where you do that. But you have to index it from time to time. If you want immediate, right away, an include folder and a clone is your quick best friend. All right, so this fails again. So now I'd want it to just run mvn compile, and we want to see where the changes are going. Let's see what changes did it make. Okay. Okay, it picked the right model. So here we put this application support safety setting and security guardrails. One of the top things in any GenAI application, observability and guardrails. It's as important as whatever you consider most important thing with any security. So that we want to be sure that no harmful thresholds are overset. That's an absolute must. And it wants to make changes in other places. We'll let this make changes. Sure, we have the code ready. We'll give it a number of minutes, and we want to see how it evolves. If we don't like it, we can always stop. So, what other changes does it make? Let's see. I didn't get to that. You see, it says, well, I'm not really happy with what I did, so I can restart the effort. Now, I'm not touching this. In a regular migration, I would want to make changes. Let's see. Okay, so this is now finally finishing my report. All right, we will let this run. So what else do we, okay, so we answered Tim's question. Yes. So in the end, any change we make, we should always think it is our responsibility in the end. The code which is generated, we know for sure that it is guaranteed, it's publicly stated, it provides indemnification. So it is guaranteed that it's only based on code which is publicly available. No license, private code, your code, my code, anybody else's code. So that is a very clear statement. It's public information. And so from that perspective, trust is there. So, okay, yeah, fewer developers are taught coding practices. They really integrate with their development. Security scans should be done. When we build an image, when you put an image in the artifact registry in Google Cloud, you just enable scan. It's just a toggle, and it does it each time. But that's a bit late. We want to get these things done up front. Okay, so it works on it by itself. We'll let this work. But we want to shift things left as much as we can. Did it finish? Okay, now it looks at all the classes. I should have restricted to a smaller part. Now, also with GenAI, one of the dangers which come along is we're adding new protocols like MCP and A2A. A2A is built for agent-to-agent and security as it is in mind, but MCP took off like wildfire with no security. It was added in the spec in June. I don't remember in which release exactly, but in the one in June. However, people have used it, and if we don't analyze this, it will just continue. And create maybe issues because we're not aware of it. We didn't have to follow them, but it is important to us. Now, in terms of licensing, tools like Gemini CLI, you can run it in your command line. Here, okay, in which temperature would you like the answer? Okay, that's funny. Should have been specific. You can run it anywhere you have a terminal. If you want integration, whenever there's a change, you want integration with ID, it integrates with VS Code or the different derivatives of VS Code or in IntelliJ. But you can use it in any editor you have, wherever you can run a terminal, off it goes. That's why in the end, we were so used with terminals, at least in the days when I started my career, there was no Windows, or Windows just came up. And now we're back to, we see that the CLI has actually never left us, and it's always available to us. Let's see, what other question do we have in? I cannot, to Daryl's question, I cannot speak to QCLI. I have not tried that tool out. There are multiple tools. Why do I like to use this tool? It's full stack integration from the same provider. Model changes whenever the new 3 will come out, you're going to be able to use it. You don't have to wait for a third-party provider to have updates or so on. Performance also guaranteed to be the best. The other very important thing is this idea of open source. Some of my colleagues have contributed to it. For example, there's my colleague Jamie added this idea of how to add different system prompts and give it different personas. So one of them is funny. You can talks like a pirate to you, or like a comedian, whatever you would like. So being able to contribute to it, it's very simple to add new features. That is something which is very important for its development, and no wonder you see that many releases. Okay, so what did it change in the meantime? It seems to want to get stuck, and now it wants to change. Okay, so if we don't compilation, it added models, it added things. Let's see, what kind of failures does it have? And let's see if we can actually build it ourselves. It might have gone all right. Okay, so it goes it actually goes on it goes on a rabbit hole. And here I'm going to to roll back some of these changes. I want to, okay, I can leave this. And I want to say now, validate the plan against the code base changes you have implemented. So I want to see where, how far it got from implementing its own plan without us making the changes. I am expecting changes in the models, abstract base, and the POM file. Address the issues you have identified and complete the plan proposed. So in order for you to see what the actual changes are, and the changes are not as trivial due to easy conflicting problems. I'll show you how it will look like. So So what I want to show you is it changes the POM, which it did correctly, and in the base it will change to the new model and also read the API key. And in the models classes, it has to refer to the new models, which it did. I also changed the index file to just show on the front end to show that this has been updated. So this is the change which we want to have. So now you can see see the different files which we gave it to start to help it. We see how it goes about it. We still have not made any code changes in here, and we don't want to. And we'll let it, we have commands to validate the plan. So we are prepared to give it like an examiner type of role in which you validate the plan, identify differences, and go back. Tim says the model provider is going to build the best coding assistant. So in the end, having a top of the line model for coding assistant leads right away into the tool. The tool makes it easier, helps steer it, helps you maintain context and to maintain history, helps you guide it. In the end, you will need to start from a solid model. Also, be aware, models change all the time. Every few months, there is a new model coming out, which brings new features. These models get updated. Oh, it's not only that you see 2.5 came out and it has not been changed. It is refined as it goes along. And then tools will be built on top. All right, so it wants to build to remove this. Sure, well, we can let us do it. So we're just insisting on it wants to understand now this library. Sure. It gets confused onto that API key versus the library. Once we have it built to deploy this, it's very simple for us to deploy. And one thing it actually can do is it can generate for us the actual command. If we have the previous, let's say the service installed, or we want a command to be generated, it can help us. Generate those. All right. It analyzed that much that it is due, and that it added too much. So let's see what we got here from the security review in the meantime. In the security review, it tells us what it is going to, which classes it actually investigated. And it stopped at some point because it got into a circle. It got into a loop. And from the vulnerabilities, it found one that in this MCP server can take a URL, makes a connection, and the malicious user would know that. So that is something which I might, for example, not know. And here's, I leave always some just so that it finds them. So the recommendation is right away. So having this change for us as developers to change before we even go and promote this, when it might be too late, is a very handy thing. Sure, it ran for a few minutes. Maybe we should focus it, but we can shift all these aspects. Left. Okay. Yeah, there are different there are different strategies which we which we can use. Think about, in here, we're not refactoring large code bases. In here, we're attempting a specific thing, a migration, which should be in one shot. I work with customers with large code bases, some in the 5,000 classes in one repository or not. Sure. Sure, large ones. Now, in that case, because it might exceed even the 1 million token available in Gemini models. So we might have to break it down into multiple steps. For example, take each class, look at each import. Then analyze again this list, because it's easy. It does work for us. Look at all the imported files and check if the original file is not there, so that there are no circular dependencies. You would be surprised how often that happens. Then look into all the packages which are coming from other repositories. Not even looking through the POM file, just within, for example, a library. Then think, if I'm making this change, which classes would be impacted? And then another prompt would be, if these classes are impacted, would the original this have an impact on other classes? All of these changes are done in multiple steps. So we might do a multi-step or take multiple shots at building it. Be always prepared that we might work with code bases larger than the token. My repository, in which this repository has something around like 300,000 tokens. I have one which has 6.5 million tokens. Obviously, they don't fit into memory. So I might have to summarize different parts. I might have to. Okay, it tells me I'm stuck. Okay, so it tells you where it is. So it is not giving up, because I'm saying, okay, don't give up on that, and it can do that. So it will revert its changes. We can here decide on different things. Let it continue, let it figure its way out until it implements the plan. Or we might decide to only stop this and change that. We like the plan, and the plan listed all the changes it wanted to do. Also be aware which models you're using to making changes. I am using here just Gemini Pro. You can use multiple models, or you can use intelligent routing, where the tool automatically decides this might be a simple thing, maybe a small summarization, or maybe a listing of some stuff, and I might drop down to Flash or Flashlight, or I might use another one. And for other tools, that applies as well to the respective models which they have in mind. So Daryl mentioned a subscription to 6 tools. So the thing is, I would say before starting with a tool, I can 100% give you this advice. Start with the use case. What problem are you trying to solve? Because we all have pain points which we are trying to address, or the scope for the work. In here, just we want to do a migration. We just have a chat. And start from the use case which you're trying to do. It's not the tool itself. It's making the difference between like prompt engineering and how we want to craft prompts to get us closer to what we want from the response, to context engineering, which adds how we manage context, how LLMs might lose context as they go in time. Tools, you see, shows us at 69%. So this context is not large. If it compresses it automatically, it will keep the gist of things, but we might want to add steps that from at each milestone, write the output of what you did, and look into that. So start from the use case. Tools are changing. Tools are going to be updated, and also models are being updated every week, or every week, maybe every month. There are like new major models, and you would want to try things out. I also encourage you to try, when you implement this, let's say, have a plan which you would want to use built with a thinking model. But when you're implementing it, take the plan, start 2 instances, and test it against 2 different models and see how is that code generated. And that's how you can assess it and do that. The second thing, testing, which we don't talk about here. Testing is not just when we were building an application, here's a CRUD application, we build this cool, what we write a person, get the person, update the person, it's always the same. With LMs, evaluation and testing take a whole different dimension. And when we generate code, okay, so this has, all right, so the request, okay, so let's say, okay, stop this implementation. All right, we stop this implementation. We're going to say, roll this back. Roll this back. Changes are there. That's fine. Let's ensure that this builds correctly. And once we know that it does, we're just going to say, yeah, right. Good. Clear this up. And then we're going to say, plan, implement the plan in what is the name of our plan? So we want to let this run again. So to finish this, so use different tools, try different models out, and observe how it implements it. But also evaluate the responses. Run a validate at the end. Run an evaluate, or to ensure that your prompts and so on are good, because you want to build some and share them with your teams or these custom commands. Maybe write an evaluation command which would say, I want you to check these particular aspects. I want you to ensure that all of these things are happening before that. And that is something which is specific to maybe the work you do, or maybe the team you're in, or the group of teams you're in. But repos where they have lost in time and which are so many branches now. All the repos. Okay, took probably 40 hours of my time. Yes. So the thing is, we write some of the custom commands. I do the same, but multiple customers I'm working on with have older code bases, and they're trying to understand this. Code might not be documented. Docs might not be available. Code is not commented. Team members might have left, might have retired since, and they don't have that. So they start on a large scale, help me understand things, help me understand business rules, or even if it's documented, ensure that these business rules are implemented in this code base. And it might be a code base which I'm not familiar with. For example, I'm not a C# programmer. Sure, I understand syntax. I understand some code if I see it, but I'm not as proficient as I am with other languages. So I'd like to have a tool which would help me do that. Now, we do this. I do that at scale, and we let Gemini go at it and explain things to us. I would say that it's always mandatory to start with a good explanation. If you don't have for a project, literally, if you have no documentation at all, none, you can generate your own Gemini ND, like an analysis of the entire project for future reference, for documentation. Gemini CLI has one. I've just built a custom one, which I want specific for what I'm doing. So always start with that. So yes, it's a use case which is happening, absolutely. All right, so let's see what our friend is doing. Our friend is now, okay, boom, seems to be building what I want. This time, let's look at the dependencies. Okay, look at the dependencies. Okay, let it figure that out. So, okay, any other question while our friendly helper who wants to take vacation or take a weekend off at this time is going at it. Any other questions in the meantime?
Yeah, you can unmute yourself while we are waiting. And for those who have to leave, the meeting will be recording. I have a hard stop at 2 p.m., but we can continue this. So,
if you have any other questions, or if I left something unanswered, yeah, please.
I do have a question, but I've been asking a lot of questions in the chat, so I want to give other folks an opportunity.
I guess they're shy.
Okay,
Tim, go.
I guess I'll go. So one of the challenges also I run into, Dan, is reliable testing, like getting the testing to, or the AI assistant to reliably generate integration unit tests, follow a given pattern. It kind of wants to go off, and sometimes it skips it. Sometimes it takes shortcuts, and it's like, hey, I wrote a test, and you look at the test, and you're like, that's not a meaningful test. So I'm just wondering, like, have you, sort of in the same veins, how have you gotten Gemini CLI to kind of follow your coding convention? So I'll give you an example. So I develop React and Python apps a lot. And so I want consistent across all of my repos. I want it to have a consistent approach for developing unit integration tests. I want to make sure it uses the same frameworks. And, you know, I've experimented with some different things, but I haven't really landed on one that reliably works super well. What have you done there?
So one of the things which you can do is how you change. I would make the change at 2 levels, and that's what I'm using. This is I have a system message which I can just export. This is the one which, and it changes with every new release. So you can only do it. You just enable a flag, it prints it out. But I like to change this. So the way you can drive testing is if let's say the entire org is a Java shop or a Go or a Python shop or so on, you might have something specific and you give it some core mandates. Analyze the surrounding code, tests first, add tests all the time, consider all the created files, especially tests, to be permanently. So you try to guide it in here, compile, verify that the tests are running. If this is too generic and you don't want to do that, that's not a change which every developer would do. what you would do is you take a file like Gemini MD, and this is per project. Now you can set it up your user level. That's where I set many things up, and I might define some very important things. One is in here for today, I'm just saying use this style guide. This is the style guide. It is available. It is available to you. This is the Google style guide. It's probably the de facto Java style guide available. That is a public one. And of course, I could refer to it. But I'm specifying this directly in my Gemini file. And I'm saying, please follow this. I can also add my own best practices, or I can say for best practices, our code templates use this particular folder, and I can add an include folder. I can clone them all here. The second thing for tooling, I set up some software engineering rules. Generally, I set this up in my user where I have some things which are more elaborate, but here are some software engineering rules, like critical tool usage. Use the reference documentation. I think you were asking me earlier about this. Use this documentation, if not, revert to context 7. If you need to kill some processes, of course, do this. Here are some rules. TDD is mandatory. Tests have to write tests that confirm what your code base does first without knowledge of how it does it. Then look for concrete implementation. When you refactor, look at what's most alike, find the smallest differences, simplicity first. You set all these things up and then run tests and fix compiler errors before you run the test. So in here, you can now drive whatever you feel that is important to you, or the rules which you want to follow. If you are in there are these COEs in larger enterprises which set up good guidelines. We have our own, and you would want to follow those.
I have a question for you there too, if you don't mind. So Claude recently, full disclosure, I've been more of a Claude code user until recently. I'm starting to expand into Codex and Gemini. But so Claude recently introduced something called skills. And I've been considering implementing skills into my workflow for this kind of purpose. Does Gemini, if you can say, does Gemini have plans for implementing something similar so that you can actually say, use this exactly, here's the code example, make sure you always generate tests exactly like this?
So one thing you can do is you can have extensions in which you drive it via additional commands which are in between your system message and your prompt. So you can drive it with this, and you can provide examples.
Almost second like hooks, in a way. Is that what you're describing, like hook?
So, yeah. So this is by, if you drive it, for example, via a text. So it is driving it. It is driving it. You see, now I told it not to use a starter, yet it wants to, and it wants to stray. So I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to say, as per your plan, do not use starter dependencies. So I got sidetracked. So you were asking me about skills. If we look at this, let me clear this context. I have multiples. So if I look at tools, if you look at tools, I can define different. This is an agent. I can define different sub-agents. This is the one which you see publicly available at this time. There are others coming along. My colleague Jamie, I think he actually added one for how to look into sub-agents. So there will be the ability for you to run different sub-agents if you choose to do so. So yeah, you in the end, skills and extensions are kind of like close type of concepts. And the other thing which is very important is look at when you look at Gemini, and actually I should answer you the question by this. When we look at things, let's see, Gemini being a public project has a roadmap. Gemini CLI has a roadmap, and here is the roadmap and the project board. So here is the official roadmap. You can ask for things to be prioritized out of the backlog. So this is public. What is going to happen here? This quarter, save and resume conversation, very important. This crashes, I don't have to save it, can continue. Automate repository workflows, out of the box dashboards. By the way, I did not enable telemetry. You can have all the operations logged locally or sent by one command to Google Cloud. Improve integration testing. Autonomous background agents. So autonomous background agents, if I want to run here, deploy to Cloud Run of this particular project, right now I do it, it executes, and it will wait for 5 minutes until this gets built because it uses Cloud Build under the hood. However, if I want to, once this is implemented, I can say, okay, do this in the background and deploy it. In the meantime, I'm going to do some additional work. Then support the sub-agent architecture, which is just what I mentioned. You can and you will be able to fork a number of agents and say, well, like what we did initially, I want to have a coffee, but first I want to do a code review. Do I want you to do a security review? I want you also to run the tests. And how about you go and do that? In the end, also write a report. And then I want a sub-agent, if there is a code review in that folder, just monitor that folder. Another sub-agent says, okay, then if there are any high or critical or whatever findings, go and implement them. So all of these things will be there. Dynamic loading of hierarchical memory. So the Gemini MD file in the root all the way to your project or subfolders, get all of it gets loaded. You might, with this change, it might be like a lazy loading. You will use it only when you need that. So you will see all these changes. This is for this year. This is good to have a public roadmap. The other thing which was launched is this idea of citations. If you want to see whose code it was used, because I contribute to open source many times code, I see citations of like, especially if I use that quotes demo. Oh, you have used this. Yes, I've used it quite a lot. So it says I found snippets from that particular. Tools that we can leverage to help guard against AI slop with it. So the idea is you want to set up guidelines. In the end, the quality of things, if we work together for some time, if you say, well, I build this code and I'm just going to say, yeah, go write the test, you would know that I mean also unit test or integration test. But if it's somebody new, we might not know it. So we have to be specific around it. So yeah, so you have to be precise into what it wants. You see, if it goes into a rabbit hole that tells you I see a loop, so I'm going to stop here. You tell me what it is that you want, because it's a human in the loop thing. At eval stage, so So the thing is whether tests are not just building like AI slop. If you remember the J-test, or you might not even be aware of, there was a tool called J-test. And that tool came out in 2000. So it would generate every single test. If you had two parameters, one was good, one was null, the other way, both null, both good. And for a medium-sized project, it took like 8 hours. And obviously, you couldn't address those, and it was so hard to address. Right now, you can provide a definition of what a good test would look like. You can set up in your guidelines, I want to have mock tests, or I want you to run the test against the three latest long-term support versions of Java, 17 and 21, but now it's 25. You might thinking of moving to 25, but you don't know if it is. So you always say, when you build this, also run the test against 25 and see that works. So you can control that within the file you have. It's what you ask for. Okay, so this has a detection loop. So we're not going to go through this anymore. The changes, I showed you what the changes are. This is where we are. In order for us to, if we want to deploy this, more or less once we build it, there's 3 commands. I run here on a VM, it's a powerful VM. I can build this within the minute. You can automatically deploy from code. The other thing is, when we work in a serverless environment, we don't work in isolation. So we want to say here, list all the services in my GCP project. So because I configured the Cloud Run extension, and it is based on MCP, it will now it wants to see. I see that this is the project ID. This is the good project. I have multiples, but in my local machine, this is my project. If I say gcloud list, I can see this. Okay, so it tells me this is my project. Good. So now, where were we? All right, of course, let this run. So it will be helpful for me to list these services, but I can see these services here. But I'm in my command line. I see them. All. I can filter them. So sure, that's great. But while I'm here, okay. So where is my project? US Central one. I should have specified that. So now it says it remembers the context. It looks at all the services. So I can see these services. I just deployed this, not now. That's what we want to do in the end. And I'm going to say describe this service for me. So I might not know much about, let's say I might be just a developer. I just build my code. I know it's a containerized deployment. I might not be familiar, or not just that. I want this handy. I'm in this window, and I want to get this information. So now it tells me, it lists all the services. I'm not asking it to build anything. This is still service. If I would know how to type, that would be a good idea. Okay. Yes, go and run that particular method. How do I know about them? Well, what tools are available to me? If I'm looking at MCP, I see under Cloud Run, it can create a project, deploy images, deploy files, get service, logs, get projects. Great. I guess I got that right. So I can look what tools are available to me, and I can, okay, tools. It's available here. It tells me at which URL it is, and it tells me what endpoints it has. So it inspects both Cloud Run as well as my code base. Okay. Any other questions?
For everybody who has to go, we will stay until 2, at least that's my hard stop, and we will share the recording with you. This was amazing. You're a brave man to do live demo. Take third person in 8 years that did it.
This is work we do. So let's put it this way. We work every day with these tools. We can give it guidelines. Sometimes it and it does not depend on what you. We can influence it. We can interject and correct it or guide it. Sometimes it decides it goes off in one direction. Sometimes it decides it doesn't. So in the end, that's something which we have to understand, that there's the non-deterministic nature. When this, if we look at this code base, so I can now just change the dependencies myself. I can do that. That's not really the problem. But the point is, when we need to know what we're trying to do here, we just try to just influence a tool to do a migration with different things. In our regular environment, maybe we would just go and intervene and say, well, in this plan, I want to do it. The expectation is not from our friendly helper to be do everything. It should help us with a plan. We should be refining it, and that we could leave that maybe for the next person working, or say I commit the changes up to here. If you have a complex migration, then sure, I contribute to different open source libraries. I don't understand in detail each one of them. I know what I want. I start, I know there are somebody else with multiple tools. I start from the use case. I'm trying to implement this. If I'm trying to implement this, what is it that I'm trying to get at? What functionality am I trying to implement? Well, explain this to me. Explain every dependencies I would need. And then I would, once I have this plan, I might change it. And then I would do that. There are also there's also the other thing. There are libraries, and this is Java, and we hear Java is slow. Okay, great. Java is slow. Java is actually not slow. It's the libraries we add which are slow. Is there a way to make serverless applications? We ran them in June. I think it was running with native images. Great. How can I now generate the native image configuration? Collect that information, which would allow me to build a native image with GraalVM so that it's specific for the machine architecture and the OS on which I'm running. So I can use Gemini CLI to identify all the areas of reflection, proxying, resources, which it will do. It's an information exercise. It will go exhaustively through the code base, and it will add them all to a file. That I can run every single time. Every single time we run it. For the Google GenAI SDK, we update that native image config with every single release. I just committed that a few days ago. It was released, I think, 2 days ago. And now every single release. That is a very clear winner. Others could be nuances, but we have to go and work through these things and try these things out. And that's how we learn. And think that tools change. I'm very curious to see when the new model comes along to run the exact same prompt. So a few weeks until the end of the year, we'll see that. Make any repeatable script. Yeah, even if we define a thing, we should revisit this. I'll give you one. Let me give you one. Example.
Dan, can you read the question for YouTube?
So the question is from Tim. I've recently started moving any task that I can make any repeatable deterministic to template script. We should not have AI do these kinds of things. Absolutely. We should do it, but there are things which we can do. You see, there's this validate project. There's this validate project. This is a custom command. Validate that a plan has been implemented. You're a plan validator. This is your task. This is what you want to do. Now, do you actually want to build this and write it? Until you think about this, this might take some time. It might be much easier if we would try something else. Let's try and see if we can add our own custom commands. Let's see if we can add our own custom commands. And I'm going to say the following thing. Analyze each one of the commands in the Gemini plan commands extension, which I published, and generate a plan validate custom command in this particular folder, because then it gets automatically picked up. I tell it what to do. If anything is missing, flag the differences. Use the same style as those commands. Do not run the test at this time. So I'm going to say generate this file, but I'm going to say this validate live so that we can see this command. So to Tim's point, in cases where I want to build custom commands, I could use the AI based on good tested examples. By the way, the plan command, Gemini CLI implemented Pacman a few days ago with the same plan command in one shot. So, it's non-deterministic on a given day. So we might want to help us generate these commands. And I'm not saying we should take them ad literam, but it does the grunt work, the 80–90% of the work. And then we can assume the responsibility for it and fine tune it. So let's say it added this file. Is it the exact same as the other file? Yeah, not exactly the same, but kind of like similar context. And because the other commands look at plans under plans, it tries to add it. If I like it, then it becomes, to Tim's point, this moves into, I can add it to the extensions, I can publish it, and I can share it with all of you. I could add this now and share it, and all you have to do is install it a minute from now. That's all there is to it. It's just a file. But we should use it to help to inform us for the next steps. That's where I see good value out of things for us to build. And then that's great. templates, I might build also different build templates. If I want to have this command generated, well, I can just say, take the command of the existing service and reuse the same parameters, but use a different name. And this is a command which is generated in this way. Sure, I can use that MCP server, but maybe I don't want to wait. Maybe I just want to have this kind of command and just put it in the README file. Hey, if you want to use it, just take this and use it. And by the way, one thing not to forget, I set up a lot of environment variables. API keys should be treated like database passwords. The same thing. Consequences could be as dire as a leaked database password. Imagine if I share my own API key and all of you start using it. I think my credit card will run out quite soon, right, on it. So always be aware of things. And I know who asked about security. Yes, security aspects get updated in the same way. So build things, generate things, update things. If I don't like this, I can change this. I can, oh, it generated a plan. Maybe I don't want to do this. And I can say plans, and by this, it expects this as a parameter for me to specify where the plans directory is. If not, it takes that. Maybe it didn't generate like that. Now it's for me to fine tune a number of things as I see. I just hope this was useful to you and
to me, yes, but let the audience speak.
Questions, I can see pertinent questions being asked and questions which I would ask in a similar way, because we should not forget that the good practices we learned in the past for software don't change. Mm-hmm. Services are services, where that app talks to multiple models and MCP A to A and different things. Mm-hmm. Good, cool. But it still gets deployed to Cloud Run. It still needs to run, start fast. And you see the previous one started fast. That's a native image. Starts in like 700 milliseconds or so. All these practices are the same. The CI/CD pipelines change. I'm not suggesting that you should use the MCP server from here to deploy to production. But if you want to start something new or you want to quickly deploy it, you can do it at the fingertips. You could write the one-line command if you know how to do it and do that. But this should be handy and helpful to you. We should not forget that the history influences what we do in the future. We're just adding new things.
Amazing. So John had to leave. I would normally ask him for closing thoughts. Anybody wants to ask any questions? Sorry, we're a little bit over.
This
and
was,
I need to do Raffle.
This was really helpful. Really helpful. I appreciate it. Got a lot out of it.
Happy that you like it.
And I love how we pivoted. Originally, Meetup was about Gemini CLI, but it became not about the tool, but about thinking how to best use it. That's like what amazes me then with you. You always over-deliver. So thank you so much.
And that's why, like, every software engineers are always asking me, it's like, hey, am I going to be out of a job? I said, not if you actually learn to master AI, because it doesn't matter. Like, we can use these tools and practices that Dan's showing here, right, to kind of like keep AI on the guardrails and make us more efficient. But AI can't know our intentions, and our intentions evolve and change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I'm like, no, you'll become an orchestrator, but I can't envision a future where this kind of background experience isn't necessary, right?
The goal is to think about why, about what problems we address, why we do something, not the how. How is a tool. Now, we need to learn that there are some helpful features we can intervene from system message to prompt, but why do we do that? What do we want to control? Where can it help us? Where is it good at helping us? I could talk for 20 hours, Craig. I work with customers on various different things. I build apps, I use the tooling, and I think that's a good thing, to use the tools which you need and contribute to projects which you want to, which you're passionate about, or things which you actually need. there are many things which we want to have. I was asked if syncing budget, which was a great feature introduced in Gemini 2 or 2.5, can be used. I said, yeah, you have to use the new SDK. And one customer used it. Okay, great. It migrated their code in like one shot. If you use starters, it's even simpler because you just change the configs. But I purposely didn't want to do it to mess it up a bit here. And yes, I want to have this change, but now I want to add this new feature, and I have this available. What do I do? What do I learn out of it? What does it influence how I'm going to use new features? And when you contribute to open source, the pace of change is so high that you can't keep track with what somebody changed since your last contribution.
I love that you focus on the question of why first. So few people do that, really. I mean, a lot of the organizations I've worked with, and one I'm working with right now, it's just hard. Like people, when there's a major technology decision, right? A lot of people just jump right to the technology solution. Oh, I know how to do that. That should be Elasticsearch. Oh, I know how to do that. That should be Kubernetes. I'm like, wait a minute, did you stop and ask why you're even like making the change you're making, right?
The thing is that it's valid from any type of consulting type. If I'm answering a question or you answer a question, that's consulting somebody else, your friend, your family, your coworker. But we always have to understand why is it that we actually do it. It has nothing to do in the end with AI. It just helps us out. But these are old things which we did. And yes, many times all of us might go down the rabbit hole of like, oh, I'm trying to solution this because I think this is like a simple question. But what if I didn't really understand the ask? I need to ask. And like if you read the Toyota Way, they ask the why. When did that book come out? Like 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Ask the why and 3 times. First time, okay, then why? So that you see, have I missed something? If I have an understanding, like I am sure that this plan is fine, and I'm sure that if we just let it to its own devices, sooner or later it will just do that. Sometimes it does it in 3 minutes. Sometimes you see, took 20 minutes twice, and it was close by one import, but we let it kind of like let it fail. But the thing is, we understand what we want to do. Why the ask? Well, that library is out of is on the sunset path. I want to use this. I want to use new models. Now I have an understanding of it's. There's always something which drives us to do that. We're not just doing it, and we should never forget what we learned in the past. That's not going to go away. Somebody hard code things, great. That was 20 years ago, and you can have problems at that time. I've seen projects I analyzed blueprints for with Gemini, and it found in large code bases quickly from the past things like hard-coded database passwords, URLs to another system. This is legacy code, and those teams are really interested in find out, not because they don't know what to find, but it's just because the sheer amount of data is so high that this just helps it up. This speeds you up instead of like going hours and hours and searching for, I don't know, a .connect across a code base. It would help us. So use it responsibly and with always think that we learn every day something. Every day.
I love it. So we are moving, takeaway people, we are moving from how to what and why, shifting to the left. That's what I hear.
And many things we have to shift left, because the reality is we don't have time to send an image, to make a build, it gets run, even if it's automated, comes back a few hours later. Oh, and by the way, you had that security error. Sure, it ran it once. Now I know it's fine. It's good. The next time I can run the security, and I can I can analyze it in GitHub, or I can just analyze just the pull request, which I'm going to change, which is incremental, right?
That's cool.
So, yeah.
Don't leave yet. I want to share the winner for the raffle. You know, Manning Publications, we have that. So let me see if anybody missed it. This is amazing. There was a saying before, if you don't know where you're going to end up somewhere else. So that's really resonating nowadays, knowing, planning stuff. And then one interesting thing happened to me when outsourcing to India started way back when in Toronto. The way to save myself from serial developer and architect was to become business analyst. There was no Zoom. You couldn't outsource that. So I spent a couple years understanding business needs, mapping it to other teams. I'm finding that I'm working more and more requirements and specification nowadays. Like, what's old is new again. So that's another shift toward the left, but that's my experience. Anybody else while I'm pulling the raffle?
Feel free to reach out to Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever, if you want to continue the conversation. Absolutely.
Am I sharing the screen with managing innovation?
Yes.
So by the way, this is my not 10 commandments. This is my 5 commandments of the projects, and I got it from a Google like you. So this is design thinking, system thinking, double diamond approach to projects. When you as a consultant, horizontal line is time and expires. So that's my shift left, like collecting requirements, making sure you have understand the user empathy and the roles, then narrowing down requirements. That's not the work we used to do before. Then thinking 10x, this is prototyping, this is planning this phase. And then at the end, you converge back. So just sharing, I always keep it to remind me not to deviate. And now we are going back to the Manning Publications raffle. Only 10 of you did the survey. So you have really good odds in winning the book. Please share your email address with me, the one that you use on Manning Publications website, and they will and then move one of the digital products, so not print products and not combos, into your account over there, and then Manning people will give it for free to you. So that's the drill. Good luck to you. No other names that want to be here. Can I do the spin? I can, I guess. It's almost 2. Ta-da! Andy, I don't know if you are with us. Andy, are you here? I don't see the chat. Is Andy with us? Because if I don't have his email, that is gone. But Andy, are you here? No, he had to go. So let's do one more. I will remove him. Sorry, Andy. Conrad, are you here? Yeah, we went way over, so probably people had to drop off. It's okay. One more chance. Conrad, are you here? I cannot see the chat. Anybody can see the chat? No? Remove. Okay, let's do one more. That happens when you go half an hour over, but it was amazing. It was worth every minute for me. Ta-da! Sarkish? Yes, you're here. I see you in the call. Perfect. Congratulations. So that's all from me. Let me stop sharing if I can see how to do that. Any other closing thoughts, questions?
I have to drop as well. I have another meeting, but thank you for the invite. Thank you for the questions. And I hope this was as useful for you as well as it is for me, because I learned from the questions and I can see what concerns you have. And that influences what I do next. I always do that. So I have to drop. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. And Daniel.
Yes. The Dan Show.
Thank you. Sakish, drop me your email here in the chat.
All right. Bye.